We're back. This is I love live TV. This is great. We're going to bring you back to Amy in just a second. In there again, our fantastic technical crew solved this. I'll figure out what's going on later. But right now, we're going to bring it back, and Amy's going to roll back to that lovely slide on security controls. Great place to start. Amy, take it away.
She's muted.
Is your Zoom on mute, Amy?
It's the same problem because am I good? All right, we'll start again with security controls developed by the Cyber Center. So as we've proven, every once in a while, big and small things go wrong. So in the world of cybersecurity, the best thing to do is to develop an incident response plan so that regardless what happens with your data or your business, you know who's in charge, who you need to call, and how you need to react. So that's the first control area. Secondly, you want to make sure that your devices are configured. You securely configure your devices. While you're making your incident response plan, you need to make sure that you identify your important information and that you back up and encrypt your data in a safe location. Also, you need to make sure that any security that comes with software that you own is enabled and is configured properly. Moving on, in the world of portable everything, so we've got USB keys and all sorts of things. You need to make sure that all of your portable media assets are secured properly. And also, depending on your business, you need to make sure that if multiple users are sharing a workstation or just in any way, you need to make sure that the right people are getting into your data. So strong user authentication is key. Also, in the world of e-commerce, I mean, now more than ever, people are ordering many things online. You need to make sure that their experience as a consumer is safe and that your websites are secured. You also need to make sure that your mobility within your company and your mobile experience for your customers is also secure. We're finding that more and more small businesses are using outsourced cloud services, not only to support their business, but also to house their backups. So you need to make sure that the cloud service provider that you're working with is also following these types of security controls and that their cloud services are secure. Implementing access controls and authorization is very important. So only the people who need to have access to that data shall have access to that data. And when your employees turn over, some come and leave or change roles, you need to make sure that you're changing the access controls to the data that they can have. This whole program, the federal government's wish is that all of Canadians have a basic awareness. So you can plan your own employee awareness training, and we're hoping that our e-learning modules that will be coming in the following year will help just provide general awareness in cybersecurity for Canadians. Another area is basic perimeter defenses. You want to make sure that you have accurate and proper firewalls that are set up in a way that will protect your computers and your business data from the internet and from the world. And then finally, you need to make sure that all of your operating systems are patched, ideally automatically. So those are the 13 control areas that the Communications Security Establishment came up with for us to run our pilot project. These basic security control areas will show up also in the national standard that's being developed. So moving on specifically to our certification process. Once you've gone through, right now you can go to our website and have a look at the Cyber Center's baseline control document, begin implementing them. Once you believe that your business is ready and your security controls are implemented, we now, as of last week, have it's actually Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we launched our live portal on the ICED website to take in requests for application. So you request a certification and you are able to select your certification body. The certification bodies are accredited by the Standards Council of Canada, and it's also the Standards Council that is working with the CIO Strategy Council to develop the national standard. Once you're working with a certification body, they will do the audit of your business. If they find that there are some gaps, then you will do your continued improvement of cybersecurity. But if everything is good, you will achieve your certification, which is currently valid for 2 years. And after that 2-year period, you will recertify. So currently, we have 4 accredited cyber certification bodies. They are Bulletproof Solutions, SourceTech IT, Cybersecurity Canada, and WATSEC Security Solutions. So this is the official Cybersecure Canada certification mark. This you can access once you're certified. You can access the digital versions of this to put on your websites and use for your promotional material. And you'll also get stickers and different things for your business. So this is going to be the mark that will provide official recognition that it's a government recognized cybersecurity, that the controls have been put in place. This will be an easy way as the brand gains recognition. This will be an easy way for your supply chain and your customers to know that you have done all your due diligence in cybersecurity and that you've decreased the cyber risk. So, what does standards mean for us in Canada? This is a very rare opportunity where small business, small, medium businesses, all business, large businesses in Canada can get involved with the CIO Strategy Council. They're developing this, as I said before, for the Standards Council of Canada. And it will be a Canadian national standard aimed specifically at small and medium businesses. It's based on the cybersecurity's 13 security controls. And the council is really using a new and agile way of developing a standard and really taking feedback from all different sizes of businesses, different experts across the country, federal governments. Our certification bodies are working with them. So currently we're in a draft phase with the technical committee, but as soon as this phase goes through, we'll be going to a public consultation. And this is where we really need Canadians to let us know if it's working for them. So sorry, can you still hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we really encourage you to get involved with the Strategy Council. Matthew McNeil is up next in his breakout session. So if you're interested in seeing what's going on with the standards development, I really encourage you to hop into his breakout session over the lunch hour. So final slide is this is our contact information. You can go to canada.ca/cybersecure. And if you have any questions, the ISED mainline would be happy to respond. So that's it, Jim. That's Cybersecure Canada. Thank you so much for having me and having the opportunity to talk about our program.
Go, Jim. Go. Okay. Thank you, Amy. All right, everybody, grab your sandwiches. This is the last of the lunchtime discussions in there. On today's discussion menu, your opportunity to have your say on cybersecurity standards in a session hosted by Matthew McNeil, Director Standards and Technology with the CIO Strategy Council. Or you could join a cybersecurity lunch and roundtable discussion with Claudio Popa, CEO of Informatica Corporation. So pick one of those two in there. You can get into the discussions by clicking the links on the platform. And so get your sandwiches, and we'll see you back here in 30 minutes for our final quiz.
I may be a little behind the times, not real good with a computer, but I learned me a thing or two, and I'm here to be your tutor. Bad people, they be everywhere, we call them cyber threats. And where do you go to find them all? They're on the internets. Malware ain't the clothes you wear for shopping at the mall. And whatever you do, don't click the part of where it says install. There's phishing with a PH now, I'll give it to you straight. Certainly not the worms we used, it's all about clickbait. Hijack ain't the thing you say when Jack comes by to see ya. It's pretty much like hell on earth, I wouldn't wanna be ya. Beware of any cookies, not made for you by mom. I'd best describe the sight you'll see you swallowing a bomb. Firmware's not those pills you take to help you with your lovin'. And the cloud, that puffy thing up there, it's where they put your stuff in. So grab yourself protection now, no more computer shimmies. If a Nigerian prince has money for you, meet him for coffee at Timmy's.
Again, quiz time. Now for your first timers, you watch for a question to appear on the right side of your screen, just under the window where I am. If you're in full screen, you won't see it. So take yourself out of full screen mode right now if you want to play along in there. Now, before we begin, you got to be aware that this application requires cookies. You got to have a cookie. Must take cookie. Okay, I think that's the end of the lame cookie jokes, but we'll find out. Maybe I'll squeeze another one in there. Just chip it in there. So if you want to play, you accept the cookie, and then you get asked, and you'll get the questions, and you get 15 seconds to answer each question. And then today, of course, the quiz questions will be around the theme of privacy and emerging technology. So here you go. And you're already ready for the quiz. Okay, question 1. Who is the most vulnerable to online scams during a pandemic? Is it A, small businesses, B, students, C, seniors and the less tech savvy, or D, large organizations? Which one? Okay, see, so is it A, small businesses, students, B, C, seniors and the less tech savvy, D, large organizations? I can see the numbers coming in there now. We'll just give you a couple more seconds in there. Who is the most vulnerable to online scams during a pandemic in there? So I'm just waiting for the control room to tell me we closed it, and we'll go. Okay, so we're live. Yes, seniors and the less tech savvy. And if you see me keep looking over the left here, that's so I can see your answers from the crowd in there. 2, on average, how many days did it take to identify a breach in 2019? On average, how many days did it take to identify a breach in 2019? Was it 206, 117, 43, or 19? 206, 117, 43, or 19? How many days did it take to identify a breach in 2019? So we'll let you get in there and take a look at that. So the numbers are coming in, and okay, we're going to give you just a little bit more time, the control room says, so you can keep it. Okay, so that's it. So let's freeze her off. B, you've got 117. No, actually, it's A is correct. When people hack your system, they come in and hang around for quite a long time, which is why that idea of horizontal movement is so important. We'll talk about that as we go through that. It's a long time they spend in your system in there. 3, what are the popular misconceptions about data breaches? And I'll give you some there. A retailer is safer after a breach. B, with enough effort, you can be breach proof. C, zero liability credit cards are the only safeguard required. So which are the popular misconceptions? Which are popular misconceptions? A, retailer safe after breach. B, with enough effort, you can be breach proof. C, zero liability cards are the only safeguard required. You pick, or D, all of the above, sorry, in there, okay? So popular misconceptions in there. And there you go. So A, retailer safe after a breach. B, with enough effort, you can be breach proof. C, and with the numbers coming. D, you are so smart. D, all of the above. Yeah, and B's got to give it away in there too. Nobody can be breach proof in there. It's not if you get hacked, it's when. Okay. 4, question 4, you're doing great, doing great. 2 more questions. If an employee is infected with COVID-19, 4 answers here. A, management must give coworkers the name of the infected individual. Or B, coworkers must be informed of a way that does not reveal the identity of the person infected. C, all employees must download Canada's COVID Alert app. D, all of the above. So 4 choices in there. Management must give coworkers the name of the individual. Coworkers must be informed in a way that does not reveal. C, all employees must download Canada's COVID app. And D, all of the above. And I think I'm here from the control room. We've got this. Yes, absolutely. B, you've got it. You've nailed it in there. That's really important. Now, I downloaded Canada's COVID Alert app, and I hope you all do. It needs a certain amount of people for it to really work well. But B is the correct answer to this question. And that's according to Fasken, who is a great global legal firm. The company may provide information relating to the department in which the infected individual works, areas of the workplace that were used by the infected person, and any information that allows his or her colleagues to take necessary measures to protect their health and that of others. And that's the answer according to Fasken. I'll give you the correct answer in there. I'll probably tweet that out to you later. 5, last question. Canada's COVID Alert app was downloaded 1.9 million times during its first 2 weeks of use. 1.9 million times, and 1.9 million and 1 right now. Get out there. So it's designed to A, warn users when they have come close to someone who's tested positive for the coronavirus. B, store data on a central server. C, run only on recently released Apple or Android devices, making it unavailable to those without recent technology. Or D, provide the provincial government with the user's name, whereabouts, and health information. Which is the most correct answer in there? It was designed to A, warn users, B, store data, C, run only on certain technology, and D, provide the provincial government with the user's name in there. So okay. So we've got the answers in there. A, it's actually not the correct answer. That is correct that it'll warn you user, but the C is the correct answer. It will run only on recently released Android and Apple devices. Now, it's quite a wide range, and it's probably still available to most of you in there. There's no good reason not to download it. But yeah, it only runs on more recent Apple and Android devices. Great stuff. Thank you for your participation in this. I hope you had fun. And please, tweet your results or your comments to this on Twitter using the hashtag Maplesec in there. Okay. In a world where issues around personal data and privacy are front of mind for customers and people in general, privacy legislation is coming at us swiftly. More than 40 pieces introduced globally since 2018 alone, and certainly many more to come. Now, I've talked about Fasken in my answers. We've referred to them for their expertise on this, but it's great to have Vanessa Henry from Fasken with us to remind us that COVID may have actually offered us a privacy reprieve, but enforcement efforts are gearing up. So take it away with Vanessa Henry.
In 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation entered into force, prompting a worldwide domino effect leading to so many privacy laws. We can think in 2018 of Canada's mandatory data breach notification law that came into force, but since then there has been more than 40 jurisdictions that has enacted, revised, or modified their privacy legislation, many of which came into force in 2020. This includes the California Consumer Privacy Act, the Brazil Data Protection Legislation, which is strongly aligned with the General Data Protection Regulation, and other jurisdictions that have either revised or enacted new laws include Bahrain, which is the first Middle East country to adopt a comprehensive privacy law, Serbia, Jersey, Hong Kong, Bosnia, New Zealand, Australia, Israel, Chile, Peru, Monaco, and I could go on for quite some time. And in South Africa, as we're speaking today, organizations are getting ready for the Protection of Personal Information Act, which we call PUPI. And then most recently, Quebec has introduced the Bill 64, which would make Quebec the most regulated jurisdiction in Canada from a privacy standpoint. So we can safely say that 2018 has been a triggering factor of a worldwide legal trend around privacy. So does that mean that we put privacy on the back burner? The answer is no, quite the opposite. If 2018 has been the year of privacy legislation, 2020 has been the year of privacy engineering. So during the COVID-19 situation, many organizations were forced to take the fast track toward the digitization of their activities. Small businesses, which used to have brick and mortar stores, had to go online very, very fast, take credit card online, set up websites, set up applications. We can think also about universities that have to start delivering their classes online to a lot of students worldwide, and they had to develop, purchase, or implement technology at a very rapid pace. And projects such as COVID-19 tracing apps, which I think most countries have struggled with, either about how they're going to do that or whether they should be doing that at all, have necessarily got non-for-profit, governmental organization, private sector, professionals, and tons of people to get together and think, how can we do that within the new parameters that we've implemented? And they try to find the most innovative way to keep the privacy of individual in check, while at the same time reconciliating other urgent interests that relates to health. And that led to all kinds of different solutions worldwide that we could compare about how organizations have taken these privacy legislation and created a technology that was entirely within this new legislation. So beyond the fact that this exercise has been not only innovative and useful, it has also been a very good way to show to the public how you can take these privacy laws and create technologies with them that are privacy engineering technologies that do respect the private life of individuals. And most interestingly, because of the interest, the public interest between these technologies, they were also subject to many privacy impact assessments that were published. So privacy impact assessments that were published, that were available, that we could review and we could read. We could actually see how in practice can we do that. And these technologies, they rely on very complex technological architecture. They look at privacy engineering principles, but also at governance principle. So for example, using data trust, and how do we set up a data trust in practice? These are all questions we had to answer in the first half of 2020. And it also means that in 2020, the word design has become very important. And what I'm seeing is really a move away from the fair information principle from the 1970s that were designed around the notion of databases. And that's entirely normal in 1970s where databases came out. We're like, wow, all of this data we're going to put together. So we need to regulate that. So what did we look at? We looked at the collection, we looked at the use, and we looked at the disclosure. However, it's been close to 50 years since then. And while these principles can be sound and useful in many situations, it remains that they do very little to address the root cause of the issue. So you could design a technology very poorly, but as long as you have the consent for the collection, the use, and the disclosure, you can largely get away with that. And I think today modern legislation do not want that anymore. And we see a new provision around privacy by design, privacy by default. And we see some questioning around, is technology very agnostic as we first thought it was? If I build a technology to spy, is the technology very that neutral? Or is that technology actually built with a purpose that maybe we don't agree with? So in 2020, it's fair to say that science has met law in the field of privacy, and privacy engineering has become the way to operationalize privacy. And therefore, privacy as trust has become the guiding factor. So organization would be mistaken to think that privacy is on the back burner. In fact, I think this has just raised the bar to compliance for small and medium enterprise, because large organizations have been able to afford privacy officer, data protection officer, chief information security officer. But that's not so true. A small and medium enterprise who are still struggling to find the expertise they need to be able to reach this level of maturity, or even who are still struggling to understand the complexity of privacy laws. When I mentioned that there are more than 40 new legislations since 2018 that are being enacted or that are being modified, that also means that multinationals have to comply with all of this legislation most likely. And not all multinationals are giant companies. Some of them are still small and medium enterprise that caters to other businesses around the world. And that just means that for small and medium enterprise, compliance is getting harder, more complex, and the resources are not getting better because we're in the middle of an economic crisis. We're in the middle of a situation that is difficult. And they're stuck between having to go online and maybe not being able to deploy all of these privacy engineering principles, or maybe risking closing their businesses. And I think that reality is what we will have to deal with moving forward. In terms of cybersecurity, the small and medium enterprise today account for most of the scam and phishing attacks that we see. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre has received about $17 million worth of complaints only in 2018, and that's out of those who actually found the information security issue, those who actually called, and that has resulted in a lot of personal information that has been seized or accessed in an unauthorized manner. And most of this is the core of Canadian small and medium enterprise that are being targeted. For hackers, it's a lot more complex to steal the data from the bank than it is to steal it from a small insurance firm that is located in a boutique firm, which means that all of the efforts that the bigger corporations are making is pushing the responsibility to the small and medium enterprise to catch up. So to put that on the back burner is not a good idea for small, medium enterprise, but neither it is for large businesses because we're only so strong as the entire economy is. So bigger businesses who have succeeded, who have reached a stage where they're doing privacy engineering, should be there to help their industry. And looking ahead with the Bill 64 coming our way, so the Bill 64 that has been introduced in Quebec, small and medium enterprise will have to see privacy, not as an optional add-on to their online strategies, but rather as a key component of their online strategies. Bill 64 in its current stage would require a company to have somebody responsible of a privacy management system composed of policies that will have to be published online. So not only a transparency policy, which we call a privacy policy, but a number of procedures that says how you deal with personal information. And if you don't name that person, then the CEO will be responsible by default. There are no threshold in that legislation as it stands today. Everybody will have to comply with each and one of the provision. So to say that privacy is behind us, I think we're just seeing the top of the iceberg. We're not seeing the years of operationalization that are ahead of us. Down the line, this is for the benefit of consumers. This is for the benefit of building better technologies, more resilient technologies, technologies that are built with consumers in mind and with trust as a deciding factor. But the bottom line of that is that we still have a few years of working hard on this. And it will be interesting to see where the federal government is going with that reform of the law that we call PIPEDA at the federal level. So Canadian lawyers are on the guard. Canadian lawyers every day are following what's happening, but it would be a good idea for business executive to do just the same, but also start to get ready. You don't need to wait for a law. There are things, there are principles that just make sense if you want to build trust. So do not be reactive. Just start working on it because it's coming near you.
And no, I'm not kidding you. Just before we went live, the fire alarm went off. So I'm going to thank Vanessa. I'm going to tell everybody, shine up your crystal ball. You should be able to predict these things. We've looked at trends to date, things you can do to protect tomorrow. Now we're going to gaze into the future, and the future is going to be here before we know it. And I'll be back before you know it. But we're going to turn things over to our panel moderator, Field Effect Chief Revenue Officer, Andrew Milne. We're going to go over to him. Andrew?
Great, thanks, Jim. Welcome to today's Emerging Tech and Preparing for the Future session. Really excited to be here. We talk a lot about the future in the sessions over the last couple of days. Nobody can really predict the future. No one can really see what's coming for certain, but the sessions the last couple of days have told us that we need to be thinking more broadly when you're thinking about what the actual impact's going to be. So through the research, through media, we're hearing all of these new exploits coming towards technology. And the question is not really, will there be a threat actor or will be somebody on the other side looking in at us and posing a risk? The answer is, it will be there. The question is, what do we do about it when we start thinking about new devices like IoT being in all aspects of our life? Everything from a fish tank to a pipeline to a toothbrush. We're seeing this threat surface expand dramatically and be more meshed with our lives than ever. So this panel is going to talk about the trends we've heard about throughout the conference. And of course, we're going to talk about the trends that are coming up in the future and see what they see as the opportunity for how we look at this, how we deal with it, and how we respond to it. One of the questions I'm really interested in pursuing is, are we prepared? Like, are we prepared for the future? If you're currently in your current situation looking out, thinking about what we're dealing with, are we prepared? Are we ready for it?
So if we focus on the internet in Canada, that's kind of my focus area right now. We need to treat the internet access, the people's access to the internet, just like drinking water. And when somebody opens the tap and they drink water, they expect clean drinking water. And my view of being ready for the internet would be when somebody connects to the internet, they only have access to the safe content by default. And we're very far from that vision. So we have a long way to go for this. So Canadian Shield and services like this help, but there's more to it than that. So we're not prepared. That's my view.
If you look at these breaches in more detail, most of them were preventable if the companies were doing their cybersecurity hygiene 101, right? So a lot of these breaches are happening, and this is not going to change. Going forward, we will see breaches again, and they will be as massive, not because the attackers are becoming more sophisticated, not because we're not prepared for the sophisticated attacks or emerging threats, because we still are not doing a good job in maintaining our cybersecurity hygiene. Making sure that we're all on top of patching the latest patches, or awareness and training for our employees so they don't click on a link that they're not supposed to click on, or they don't open an attachment that they're not supposed to.
So just playing off that theme, do you think that with the speed in which you were talking about the IoT concerns and the speed in which technology is growing, do you think that we're going to be able to keep up? If we're having a hygiene basic layer problem right now, how are we going to keep up? Will technology help us outpace the threats?
But as we're going into the future, we have access to future generations of end users, and we're going to teach them the basics of this when we have access to them at high school or then in undergraduate degrees. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, in my opinion.
So it shouldn't be as an add-on. After you've learned all the techniques and all the devices and all the gadgets, it should be coming with the gadgets, the newest gadgets that you're receiving. So if you're looking at our kids, they're getting our new iPads in elementary schools and the first grades. So why are we not offering them the basic hygiene, cyber hygiene knowledge at that time? Why are we not teaching at the very basic level what they should know about protecting their personal data and how to behave on the internet? So I think it's primarily on us to make that happen, and there are some efforts moving in that direction in Canada and across the world, but it's still very limited. So it will take probably a good decade before we come to the point where we feel comfortable with our knowledge and how to behave ourselves in the internet to be safe.
Do you think the technology training you're doing and the tools that you're providing are going to be able to help us outpace this new technology that's coming our way?
I think they're helping us to keep up to date with the threats, but it's not going to be sufficient to be fully in control. The bad actors are moving faster than us. So within an enterprise, you can have a security policy and training for employees and everything, and you have security asset that you want to protect, and you have people that manages the security infrastructure with system enforcement. Tools at work will enforce certain behavior on users. In the near future, we should be able to keep up. But at home, that's a different story. It's at the mercy of the enforcement. There's no system enforcement at home. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to find a way that people patch their computer at home. Somebody should be testing people at home on phishing and showing what it is. Fake news, like there's so much work to do on the home front.
IoT is just going to exacerbate that. Like, we're going to see a massive uptake in connected devices, connected tools, responders, everything from riding a bike with a GPS unit into it to health monitoring. Everything's got an IoT application. So I know that there's a couple of different approaches here to IoT and IoT security, but if it's sort of the Wild West now, where they're trying to put models around it, do you think there's going to be an ability for us to handle the onset of what IoT is going to bring to us in the way of security? How are we going to pull back on this to make sure that it doesn't affect things like crypto and it doesn't affect things like our day-to-day operations? Where are we going with it? Addie, I know that you've got a particular interest in this topic, so maybe we'll start with you.
There's definitely a big gap in making sure that the IoT devices that are being designed and manufactured and are in the hands of end user has the appropriate security that we expect from. Unfortunately, currently that's not the case. There's a very big push on the manufacturing side to digitize everything, to put IoT sensors in everything. But these devices mostly come with an all or nothing security approach. So they're either big enough that they can have the traditional security that we envision, and we've always had them for a bigger device such as a cell phone or a laptop, or they have nothing, almost nothing. And when you have those in the hands of the end user and as part of the solution to a smart home, smart office, smart road, it's not all or nothing. It's not 0 or 1. It's not black or white. There's a spectrum. You have some, fundamental changes to the way that these devices are being manufactured and designed, and also used in the end user homes and offices.
This is one of my biggest fears. We've heard about this new Bluetooth vulnerability, but if you look at the devices that implement the Bluetooth connectivity, most of them are vulnerable. Most of them to open in one way or another. The security state is pretty much non-existent in IoT wearable devices. It's surprising to me how much we use this IoT devices, how little security is actually implemented in them. If you look at the regulations that exist these days across the world, they're very limited. They mostly focus on the safety. But safety and security are not the same things. Probably one of the most advanced security regulations that we see are in the United States with FDA. And even with all the advances that they have in terms of the compliance and the pre and pro market analysis, there are so many loopholes. There are so many exemptions for the medical devices that by the time they come to the market, they're already compromised. They're already ready to be recalled due to just a myriad of security vulnerability that can be exploited. So to me, we haven't heard of any major hacks or compromises that would involve Bluetooth, IoT, Bluetooth-enabled devices. But this is definitely coming. If we're not going to see it this year, we're definitely going to see it next year. So I think this is something that we should be all concerned and should be all looking into.
Yeah, and if you talk to anybody in InfoSec, no one ever uses wireless or remote or any sort of Bluetooth in their environments, recognizing just the vulnerability stack that it exposes. Jacques, expanding on this, I know that you've been working on some 5G side of things. So looking to the future, IoT affected by 5G, we're talking about autonomous vehicles, we're talking about a massive extension. What's your thought on IoT and some of the 5G things that are coming up?
I just wanted to go back on the other team. One of the projects that Siroy is working on is a secure home gateway, which is the goal of that project is to build open source software on top of OpenWRT that changes the behavior at home for network connected IoT device. So if you have, and then in addition, we have behavior analysis. So if we, long story short, if we find an IoT device in your home that's compromised, it would quarantine the device on its own and avoid it from causing more outages. So that's a project that Suralab is working on actively. So now back to the main question, 5G. I think one of the main reasons the onboarding of 5G IoT device is slow is because a 5G IoT device means it's a mobile enabled device. It means it's got a SIM card in it. And the SIM card has to be registered with the mobile network operator. So the onboarding process of IoT device is being slowed down right now because of those kind of processes. But one thing we started to, so that the technology right now for 5G is that IoT device will have eSIMs. eSIMs are embedded SIMs, and embedded SIMs have the ability to be remotely provisioned. That means you can push in a garage door opener, a 5G IoT device, let's say garage door opener, you can push remotely the profile for that IoT device to act as your personal garage door. That means you have to send it credentials to remotely connect to the proper service provider. And the industry is not ready to support the 5G IoT deployment. You want to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks at anywhere along the provisioning process. So IoT Safe, it's a new standard from the GSMA, is proposing a secure framework for onboarding 5G device. But we as an industry, we need to adopt this. So we have a long way ahead before we can onboard billions of IoT devices securely.
We're seeing a lot of interesting push around how IoT is starting to affect the data Jacques was talking about, being able to pass over people's credentials as they're working on these types of environments. So one of the things that I was interested in sort of talking about is, what is the future of ransomware? Is it going to look the same, or it's not going away anytime soon? We see financial redirection being a major player, but ransomware seems to be what's taking down large corporation municipalities. We're seeing it happen almost daily right now.
It's an old trick, and yet it still works. And it still works not because we don't have solutions, not because we don't have technologies to mitigate it. It works because we're not prepared. We're not applying that cyber hygiene that Adi was talking about to be able to handle it. There is nothing new. There is nothing smart about ransomware. It's very plain and a very basic approach. Yet we all fall into the same trap. And look at the headlines. Every single month, every single week, somewhere in the world, somebody falls into the same trap.
Right. Adi, are you seeing any future indication that ransomware is going to be advanced by technology, or is it still as a human factor?
If you have offline frequent backups, even if you are hit by ransomware, you don't need to pay it, because you can basically get everything up and running pretty fast. So the problem that we don't have offline backups, we only have online backups, and they're useless after a ransomware attack, then that's something that needs to be addressed. Or if you have offline backups but are not frequent enough, that's again a problem that can be addressed, right? So the solution to it can be very easy, and it's nearly operational.
Sure. Okay. Jacques, do you have any comment on how technology and ransomware are going to mature together, or be eliminated?
Everything that has been said so far is true. It all starts with a click. The vast majority of them, they start by someone clicking on something, either a file, either a link, and hygiene. It's, people need to implement the best security practice inside their organization, inside home. We have DNS, we have our D-Zone firewall service that blocks a good chunk of malware out there. But it's just a matter of implementing the right security controls to protect your asset. And training, we have, you need to train your people not to link. You need to do phishing testing with them. You need to raise the awareness ultra high, that almost paranoid that somebody, if they click on something, they might break the internet. That's, people need to react like that. It's going to be a long time before that old trick doesn't work. Humans like to click on things. You need to implement the right security controls at home and at work.
Right. What's interesting with this is we're seeing a lot more of the deep fake type of environments where video assets are being captured and recorded through Bluetooth or IoT devices, interrupted. We're seeing audio files be recorded and manipulated. So even the voice check-ins and the voice confirmations are starting to be blocked. There's stories of VoIP systems being taken over, recorded, downloaded, and then being manipulated back to deal with what we thought was a human factor of approval. You feel like you're getting a voicemail from someone that you know. You feel like you're getting a message or a video from someone you know, and yet it's not that person at all. So I agree that the next generation will be a lot wiser, and we're going to have to come up with some technology that does push what we know and trust an encryption process. But there's still lots there to be learned, for sure. If you were to give advice to everybody in the room, what would be one thing you'd say to prepare themselves for the future?
Educate yourself would be my foremost advice to everyone who is thinking about security. Educate yourself, educate your kids. Make sure that you don't trust everything right away. Stop before you click.
I was going to say the exact same thing. So I think training and awareness at the society level as well as the organization level is very important, and there should be more budget and attention provided to awareness training, and that's going to basically protect us from things that we cannot protect unless we get to the human element, which is how most of these breaches, most of our issues in cybersecurity come down to.
You need to implement the best practice. You got to make sure you back up your information. You have security policies in place. You implement them. You got to make sure you train your users to to understand what the threats are on the internet. And you need to make sure you have access to clean internet, like Bison Firewall, Canadian Shield, or services that Sura offer to make sure if you do click on a bad link that you're not compromised. So there's a lot of things you can do, cost effective, to be more secure on the internet. And over time, all of this is going to get better, and hopefully the internet will be a safer place for all.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for all of you. I think that if we could leave with the concept that the optimism bias, which is 80% of people still believe it's not going to happen to them or they're not vulnerable in some way, has to change. We've got to be able to shift their thinking into a place where they recognize that your information, you are vulnerable, there is an opportunity, and this new technologies are just going to lead us into more vulnerabilities and a broader threat surface. So by paying attention now and thinking about what it is we do with our information and the information we share with others, it's going to be a huge gap for us coming forward. So thank you very much for the session today. Thanks everybody for your input, and it was really great. Have a great day, everyone.
Right.
You too, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Andrew. That was great.
The most hopeful thing is, for me, it's seeing how young women are getting attracted to this very exciting field. Seeing more and more young girls and women coming to this field, and with them they bring diversity and a difference of opinion to the field, and hope that it remain an attractive field.
Thank you, Andrew, and panel members, and to Mitra. And believe it or not, it was actually the fire alarm stopped. I was able to get back in and catch most of the panel. But if you'd missed it, or I'd missed it, I could have watched it on many of the replays that are going to be available on the site. So, but we're back. And that was our last presenter thoughts on the future of cybersecurity. We collected a bunch of them from our speakers, and we're going to be showing them as a montage on the site in a couple of days. So watch for that in there. But we're going to stay in the future a little while longer. We're going to talk about AI for our next presentation. In all the bluster and excitement around technology, and it can sometimes be difficult to remember that emerging tech in many cases means it's not perfect yet. But now we've got CyberOrient CEO, Dr. Ali Dekantana. He's here with us today to talk about the promise or potential of AI, but also to provide you with a list of things that you must do before you can deploy AI securely and safely. He's not going to answer the question, are you the doctor? Seriously? So take it away, doctor.
Thanks, team. Today, I want to share some tips about AI safety and how we can make sure that AI systems can be deployed and implemented in a safe and secure manner. AI technologies have been widely used in different sectors, from healthcare to smart manufacturing to autonomous vehicles, and we have seen a wide exponential adoption of AI technologies in almost all aspects of our life. While there were many attention given to using AI in our day-to-day activities, there were little efforts made to make these AI systems secure, safe, and make sure that they are complying with privacy and regulatory requirements. Most of us might be familiar with the famous adversarial attack that could fool a machine learning engine to detect a panda as a gibbon. And while on the face of it, this could be considered as just an academic effort, it could have a lot of practical implications. So for example, we could fool the same AI engine with a very similar technique to not be able to detect a person at all with just holding a random graphic in their hand. As you can see in this slide, the second person, the person on the right, actually holds a graphic and it was not detected by the computer as a person at all, right? Which clearly shows we can easily bypass the person detection or image detection techniques so easily. AIs have been significantly used in other domains as well, and one of the fastest growing domains is using AI for text recognition in chatbots, in comment management, and even text analysis for things like mortgage application verification. And as you can see in this slide, it was kind of trivial to fool an Amazon AWS or a Microsoft Azure-based text recognition system to be always bypassed with very little, around about 1% change of the text. This clearly indicates how vulnerable are these AI systems against a carefully crafted attack, and how successful an attacker could be by just changing very few places, putting some spaces or changing O's to zeros, and bypass the AI detection completely. And as you can see in the next slide, we can easily fool an AI engine to recognize a stop sign as a speed control sign, which is completely different signs. And this could have even physical attack implications. For example, in Canada, there are many cities that are using snowplows during winter, and the drivers have very little visibility because of the weather condition. For these cases, they are sometimes using AI technologies of object detection, so to avoid hitting objects which are on the side of the road, or to avoid accidents that could cause by the snowplows. Just imagine that some of these snows could end up making these shapes on the stop sign and completely fool the driver and the system and cause an accident. These are the types of errors that's supposed to be taken and supposed to be detected much earlier before the deployment of these AI technologies. On the same slide and below, you can see that how easy it is for an attacker to fool a spam filtering system if they can have access to the training data. Not the whole training data, but access to 1 to 2% of the training data could allow the attackers to almost always successfully bypass a spam filtering detection system. This could be a big warning for the organizations which are using their own internal data or third-party training data sets to train their AI engines and use them in the real world if they're not taken carefully. In the next slide, you can see an attack that involves reversing a previously developed AI engine to extract the data used for training. We have seen, especially more recently, that AI has been significantly used in healthcare research or other types of domains that are dealing with a lot of private and sensitive information. And as it was shown in this slide, it is trivial if the AI engine is not designed properly to reverse that AI engine using privacy invasion attacks and identify the original data that were used for training. This would be a significant consideration if a company or organization is training an AI engine and they want to share it with other companies. And they need to make sure that no privately identifiable information can be leaked through using these AI techniques. And as you can see in the same slide, in the below part, there were attacks against Amazon Alexa. Most of these voice assistants are relying on a wake-up signal to wake up and start taking further instructions. And as it was shown there, we could easily add some noises to the input of an Amazon Alexa and totally change the order from something like, how are you, to open the door, which clearly shows the weaknesses of the voice recognition systems if they are deployed without giving proper attention. So these samples may reveal a lot of issues, security, privacy, and monitoring issues with AI systems that should be addressed before they are deployed in a real world, in a real system. There is a colleague of mine who always say that the status of the AI security is like web security back in 90s, that a single malware could brought down the whole system altogether. That's the reason that the countries are putting a lot of attention towards setting up the rules and regulations of responsible use of AI. For example, in Canada, from March 2019, there is a guideline for responsible use of artificial intelligence, which requires companies to deploy AI technologies that are explainable and transparent and robust, and they can understand and measure the impact. EU even has a stricter guideline on EU ethics guideline of trustworthy AI, that they mandate following many standards and many regulations to be able to use the AI safely and securely in EU. Although this guideline has been passed in April 2019, but as we have seen in the privacy regulation in the EU, it usually takes just a few years for these guidelines to become mandatory rules and regulations for the companies. We are expecting to see this EU ethics guideline to become a mandatory law by 2022 in European Union. And there is another effort in the United States to build artificial intelligence guideline for American people that is relying almost on the same course that is mainly focused on making sure that the AI is robust and secure before it is deployed. So this is something that companies should plan for and should expect to adopt their technologies and their ecosystem accordingly, because they will be coming very soon as laws. There are four main elements of trustworthy AI. Any AI technology should be human compatible, meaning the human should have control and should be able to understand how this AI technology works and when they are under control observation of the AI technologies. The second pillar of this trustworthy AI framework is making sure that AI technologies are robust and safe, which means we need to make sure that they cannot be attacked. In the samples that I showed you earlier, you could see several examples of how easy it is to attack AI systems, and they cannot be fooled easily. Privacy, respecting AI technologies has become another pillar of the trustworthy AI systems. We need to make sure that any AI system that has been built or deployed in the organization is following the privacy rules and regulations, and it's not that easy to just run a privacy invasion attack and retrieve the training data and leak the private information. And finally, the last element of trustworthy AI is to make sure that AI is fair, accountable, and transparent. We do not have any biasness on the AI technologies, or if there is, they can be detected and addressed as soon as possible. So the main things, the main takeaways of this call, of this presentation, for those who are seeing this presentation, could be three most important messages. First, make sure that you are including audits, AI systems in your regular audits. You need to make sure that your AI systems are following biasness and privacy requirements, and make sure that your auditors are checking the compliance of all those AI systems, at least for the biases and privacy. The second thing is always include AI systems in your pen testing. I have shared you lots of stories beforehand that how easy it is to target an AI system and change its behavior or even bypass the expected behavior of the system completely. Make sure that AI systems are included in the scope of your penetration testing efforts. AI systems are quite vulnerable, and most of these vulnerabilities should be detected and should be addressed before they are deployed in the real world. They are vulnerable to adversarial attacks, as you have seen few of them in the previous slides, as well as privacy invasion attacks. So a regular and continuous pen testing of AI is an important part of your pen testing policy. And finally, verify that your AI ecosystem, and I mean the whole ecosystem, from the time that the data is generated up until it is passed to the AI systems and a decision is made, is monitored and is visible in your SIEM technologies. We have seen a lot of attempts of the attackers to get access to the training data that are used in an organization to train different AI engines, or even sometimes you may even use a pre-trained AI engine and try to train it with your own company data. You need to make sure that all these data are monitored in your SIEM properly, and no attackers or outsiders could inject their own data during training time, because that means they could easily bypass the system in the future. Make sure that in your SIEM there are plugins to read the AI system events. Events are generated by your AI system, so you can monitor and understand if they have been targeted. And of course, keep building playbooks for your security analysts, so they can run these playbooks on their SIEM and check whether your AI systems are in a safe and secure situation. And as the final warning, if you need any help, feel free to reach out to us in Cyber Orion. We are always here and willing to help to build and make your AI systems robust, responsible, and reliable.
Hey everybody, welcome to Handy Dandy Super Useful Phishing Tips. Thanks for coming, but I think you're looking for the room down the hall, 207. Love the hat, by the way. What we're talking about here is phishing with a PH. You know, like PH in the word phony, as in the phony pieces of types that constantly bombard you with this garbage. Yeah, those guys. Hands up if you've ever been the victim of a phishing scam. Nobody, huh? Well then, let's just use a hypothetical example, shall we? So this employee, let's call him Doug. Thanks for doing this, Doug. So Doug is just sitting there at his desk one day when he gets an email advertising Discount Viagra. Discount Viagra? Come on. Does Doug look like the type of guy who needs Discount Viagra? So of course, Doug deletes the email. Right, Doug? Delete the email, Doug. A bit later that day, Doug gets another interesting email telling him he's won a 7-day cruise in the Caribbean. Way to go, Doug! All they require is Doug's email address, phone number, blood type, mother's maiden name, polar coordinates, favorite color, and credit card information. Of course, Doug is way too smart to fall for this sort of thing. I mean, why would they need his credit card information if it's a free trip? And who spells Caribbean with a K? Still, even later that day, right before he has to leave for his 5:30 salsa dancing lessons, Doug receives an alarming email from his bank saying there's been a security breach and he needs to click on this link to verify his identification and password right away. This is a disaster. Thank heaven the bank spotted this. Doug has to work fast to protect himself, doesn't he? Maybe not. Let's take a deep breath and think about this for a moment. First of all, if the breach really was happening and time was of the essence, why would the bank contact him via email? Try mousing over the link to see what appears. Look carefully. Isn't it kind of curious that instead of having a bank of whatever email address extension, this one is DHK77537 at thisisnotascam.br? Furthermore, Doug doesn't even have an account at that bank. Look, it's not just the Dougs of the world who can fall victim to these heinous phishing scams. So can Mary, and Walter, and Felicia, and Tony, especially Tony. We're all at risk here, even those of us who think we're too smart to be duped. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Murray. Phishing scams have gotten a lot more sophisticated and nefarious since Grandpa's old dial-up internet. Getting duped today isn't just a newbie thing anymore, so don't feel bad that you may have fallen victim to it in the past. Phishing can be big, smelly, ugly business.
Ew.
No, the other phishing. Be aware, stay alert, and help toss phishing back into the sea where it belongs. So here are some quick, helpful tips on how not to get caught in the deep, dark net of phishing scams. Be wary of anything suspicious, any random items that land in your inbox, and we're not just talking about fretful Nigerian princes anymore. Take 5 seconds and think about what's being presented to you. Would a company or the bank or the government really contact you in this way? If it's too good to be true, it likely is, like a no-fat donut. Be especially careful of anything with a heightened sense of urgency. Acting upon something too quickly leaves us wide open to who knows what, and if you're not careful, the only thing that may be time-limited is your corporate security. Watch for bogus hyperlinks. Before clicking on anything, hover over the link first, which will reveal the actual URL they're trying to send you to. And if you don't, you're likely in for more viruses than a grade 4 class and flu season. Even worse is ransomware that scrambles your computer data until you pay the ransom. Or a total breach of your corporate systems, and you thought the IT guy was mad at you for mixing up all your passwords? Lastly, don't open any attachments in an email you're unsure of. Consider it like a piece of pie you found on the floor. While it might look tasty, who knows where it's been? If you don't know where it came from, don't touch it. So, any other tips? No, I mean the viewers. What do you think? And yes, that video was produced by our own amazing agency, and yes, I don't know how they talked me into it in there, and yes, that is me on the video. You might have noticed I've lost a little since then. That was because after the video was made, I went to my wife and showed it to her, and I said, but the camera adds like 5 kilos or 10 pounds. And she looked at me with a straight face and said, it adds 10 pounds. How many cameras did they use? Well, that was my warning sign. Anyway. Great support from her on that one. Hope you enjoyed it, but I hope you also discover you can have fun with these things and start serious discussions in there. Now, going back to our last panel, Ali, thank you for that. We enjoyed this. I love the thing on AI, and I was sort of making the bridge between that. You know, some of the things that fool AI, data, and we keep going back to this idea that inconsistent or bad data leads us to false conclusions. We're no smarter than, well, we're not smarter than AI, but it can lead companies to false conclusions and ultimately bad business decisions in there. And data's never been more important, and it's only going to grow in importance. So for our final presentation of the conference, we have Cybersecurity and Privacy Institute Director Florian Kirschbaum. And Florian's going to talk about 2 recent breakthroughs in data sharing and privacy. Over to you, Florian.
I am grateful to be invited to this event and be able to take this opportunity to speak to you about future technologies and research in data security and privacy. I research how to protect data during the entire data science pipeline. When data is processed, it usually proceeds along a series of steps. From data collection to data preparation, then data management to data modeling, and finally, inference and visualization. During each of these steps, data, and in particular personally identifiable information, needs to be protected against various actors, such as external hackers, outsourced data processors, for example in the cloud, inside data analysts, and even end users. This has resulted in a number of use cases that companies commonly experience during their data processing. In this talk, I'm going to discuss a few recent results that me and my team have made in close collaboration with our industry partners. These show where the current limits of the technology are, but also demonstrate use cases that are already deployed or of high relevance to industry today. Before I begin to describe those results, I will review the basic technologies that we use. Today's data security is based on two fundamental technologies: differential privacy and encryption. Encryption is used to protect data at rest or in transit for decades, but recent advanced cryptographic techniques such as homomorphic encryption have enabled further use cases in data science. In homomorphic encryption, a client encrypts data and outsources its computation to another party. It is often a public key encryption, such that a data processor can provide additional input into the computation. However, the data processor does not obtain the result of the computation, but only an encrypted result, which the outsourcing party needs to decrypt. An alternative technology to homomorphic encryption is secure multi-party computation. It is an interactive protocol among at least two parties that computes a result on joint inputs. Multi-party computation is orders of magnitude faster than homomorphic encryption, but requires more communication across the network between the different parties. Different than in homomorphic encryption, the computed function is known to both parties, and any party can receive the result. In use cases with input from more than one party, multi-party computation can often be more efficient alternative to homomorphic encryption. There also exists newer encryption technologies that supersede homomorphic encryption, such as functional encryption, where the data processor obtains the result. These encryption technologies, however, come with their own set of challenges. Homomorphic encryption or multi-party computation are often insufficient for data protection in a data science use case. They only protect the computation, but not the result of the computation. Differential privacy can remedy this shortcoming. Differential privacy actually is a privacy definition for the leakage of a result distribution about a single entry in the database. It can be implemented by differentially private mechanisms, such as the Laplace mechanism, the exponential mechanism, or a randomized response. These mechanisms take as input the result of the computation and output a randomized perturbed result of the computation. For example, instead of outputting the average salary of a company is 42,500 Canadian dollars, the mechanism outputs the average salary is 41,250 Canadian dollars. Since this result could have been computed with similar probability with or without an individual employee's salary, an adversary who learns the result cannot determine this employee's salary. We can now move to investigate some of the use cases me and my team have worked on with our industry partners. The first one I would like to highlight is the collection of usage statistics. Imagine a company that wants to collect statistics about how their customers use their products. For example, which functions are invoked, or what the average number of transactions in the system is. However, they want to do so in a privacy-respecting manner, giving the users some confidence that their data is protected. Google collects statistics about how people use their browser Chrome. Google has so many users that they can do it using differential privacy alone. Each user perturbs their usage statistics in their browser and sends the perturbed statistics to Google. Since there are so many users, the aggregate results are still accurate enough to be useful to Google. But what does a company do with a smaller user basis? In collaboration with SAP, Europe's largest software vendor, we developed the following idea for the exemplary statistic measure of the median, the middle element in a list. We select a few participants that act as multi-party computation nodes, and each client submits encrypted results to those parties. These parties then compute the statistic and apply the differential privacy mechanism, randomized perturbation, to the result. The consequence of our approach is that useful, accurate, but privacy-respecting collection of user statistics is now possible for thousands of users instead of millions. This enables entirely new sets of use cases for this technology. The expense is a cryptographic computation that requires a few minutes over a wide area network. This computation can be performed by a small set of clients themselves or dedicated servers deployed by the collector, for example, in different data centers. Multi-party computation has advanced so much in the last decades that a computation, even for large data sets in the millions or billions of entries, is now feasible at low cost. The next use case I want to describe takes place between two companies. One has a data set, for example, a set of credit card transactions. The other has a data set with personal information about the credit card owners. For example, which advertisement they saw. The combination of the two data sets allows valuable insights. In this particular case, which ads resulted in a purchase. Again, Google and MasterCard run such an analysis in a privacy-respecting manner. An example result is the ratio of ad views that resulted in a purchase. This ratio provides an insight into the effectiveness of advertisement and may be computed using a secure multi-party computation. However, again, the result of the computation may be sensitive. Consider an ad which had a low number of views, but a high efficiency. Then, this ratio would reveal that anyone that viewed this ad likely also bought the product. The company observing the viewers could now also determine likely buyers of the product. So we need to secure the result using differential privacy. We follow the same model as above, but compute the result using homomorphic encryption. Homomorphic encryption has the advantage that the communication over the network is small, only linear in the size of the smaller of the two sets. This is advantageous in the case of unbalanced sets. For example, a large bank dealing with a local newspaper and their subscribers. Our solution scales well, allows the computation of the analysis, a function over the set intersection within minutes at the lowest communication cost to date. It provides optimal accuracy, a property important for dealing with small data sets. There are many other important use cases for private analytics over the set intersection. For example, in genetic testing or cyber threat detection. As such, ours or related protocols can be used as building blocks for several applications. As the last use case, I will describe an extension of this previous use case. Instead of matching database entries using a unique identifier, such as, for example, a phone number, we match entries using an approximate algorithm on faulty data. Often data entry errors or differently collected information, for example, about addresses or names, complicates matching entries between databases. This not only complicates the matching between two individual database entries, but more so which entries need to be compared in the first place. Whereas in exact matches, entries can be compared in sorted order, this sorting may be incorrect for faulty database entries, and the search procedure needs to be more complicated. It was long believed for a long time that truly secure and private searching and matching of this sort is computationally infeasible. Instead, protocol designers revealed information in addition to the result, sometimes bounded by differential privacy, that while it could be potentially be abused, enabled faster searching. This problem is known as record linkage or private record linkage in its privacy-preserving variation. It is in practical use in many provinces in Canada and subject to research for several decades. In a recent breakthrough result, my team and I designed the first solution that achieves a subquadratic search time, practical running time, leakage-free security, and high accuracy at the same time. Describing the details of this protocol exceeds my time today, but I would be happy to follow up on any questions anyone may have, since I believe this protocol does have commercial value. In summary, in this talk, I presented 3 use cases today that exemplify the work that my team and I do to secure the entire data science pipeline. By combining differential privacy and encryption, we can design protocols that secure sensitive and legally protected personally identifiable information while still enabling data analysis at a reasonable cost. This combination can take the sting out of big data and may allow you to use the data you collect in a privacy-respecting manner. Should you have any follow-up questions, please send me an email and I'm happy to engage in any further discussions or questions you may have at florian.kirschbaum@uwaterloo.ca. And thank you very much for listening today.
Thank you, Florian. And wow, the clock is winding down on Maplesec 2020, but it ain't over till it's over, and it ain't over. So there's a couple more things you're going to catch, and you're going to love them in there. But one more time, just before we get to the wrap-up events here, let's take some time to thank our sponsors and supporters. I know I've mentioned them a number of times since my opening remarks on day one, but they deserve every bit of praise. We could not do this for you without them. So let me just mention CIRA, bless you, high fives, the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, and great content as being a big supporter. Fortinet, thank you. Field Effect, thank you. CyberArk, thank you. Tehama, thank you. Proofpoint, thank you. And if you get a call after this from somebody here and they want to chat with you, do me a favor. Thank them for sponsoring. That'd be a great thing to do in there. Again, I want to thank the community that's helped make this possible, the CIO Association of Canada. Great supporters in there. The CIO Strategy Council, you saw the impact they had on this. The McKinsey Institute with great stuff that they brought forward. And the Cybersecure Canada, we've seen Serene Risk, the Canadian Cyber Threat Exchange, the International Institute of Business Analysts, and BizTech Professionals Association of Canada. I don't want to run by them too fast. Great groups. Thank you so much for your support in this. Now look for full coverage of Maplesec 2020 on Cybersecurity Today, the podcast. And if you're not subscribed to Cybersecurity Today, do it. Keep up. It's a beautiful 3 minutes, 3 times a week, and you'll keep up on everything. And check out itworldcanada.com and itbusiness.ca, the 2 best technology publications in Canada and the world. And you look at them over the coming days and weeks for stories. You can also come back to the platform, you've been registered in here, and find all the videos if you want to watch them again, or if you want to have a colleague watch them with you. This was the first of a 5-year commitment to Maplesec. And we're going to do it during Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We're going to kick off the month with it every year. And we've already started planning for next year, so mark your calendar, October 5th, 6th, and 7th in 2021. We'll be back. And there will be lots of events between. The beauty of this type of event is that it doesn't end with the end of it. The platform continues, the publishing continues, and our contact with you will continue. So watch this space, you'll see more. There'll be some live events in some quarters by then, and if you're interested in sponsoring a live event in there, contact me, jlove@itwc.ca or at CIO Jim Love. And they'll remain virtual, and it affords us an opportunity to bring speakers from across Canada and around the world in there. Now, as we go out, and there's one more big session after that, here's a short closing tribute to the speakers and the ITWC staff behind the scenes who make events like this possible. Way to go.
That was horrible. I'm going to start that again.
Okay, because my fire alarm drill just went off, so I'll be like 1 minute.
This is so cool.
Do I really need to do this?
John, is your alarm stopped?
Not yet. looks like Rogan. I'm so sorry about that.
Well, now I gotta stop laughing. All right, it's cold out here.
So that's it. But for those of you who are so inclined, the day isn't quite over yet. You can join me in our post-conference networking roundtable. I'm the host. I want you to come by. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Come by, shoot the breeze. Bring a drink. I'll be there. I'm going to have a glass of wine as well. And if I don't see you there, I'll see you next year in there. So think of this as hanging out after the live event, shooting the breeze. And again, if I don't see you in the break room, I'll see you next year at Maplesec 2021 or at one of our events through the year. Take care, everybody. See ya.